Welcome to the I Am Unbreakable podcast, where the struggle is part of the story. Real. Unconventional. And here's your host, Adrianne.
Thank you for joining us on the I Am Unbreakable podcast. Today we have a rock star woman, female entrepreneur, trailblazer. She's one of my heroes, Adriana Monique Alvarez. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And did I pronounce your last name correctly?
It's okay.
I want to know because I want to say Alvarez. Can you just say it for me again?
I love it. So it's Alvarez, but I think I need to change it to your version.
Alvarez. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So you are currently I have so many questions to ask you, so I'm just jumping right in. You are currently in Colorado. Yes. You are in your grandma's or grandparents' home. Can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up there?
Yes, absolutely. So I was born and raised here. Both sides of my family have been here for 4 or 5 generations. And when I turned 18, I was ready to leave. I wanted to figure out who I was outside the small town, my family, and my church. And so I left. And when 2020 hit, we were wrapping up our 5th year of traveling full-time as a family, my husband, myself, and my 2 boys. We were living down in Mexico, right on the border of Mexico and Belize. And the world shifted and changed, and it became apparent we weren't going to be able to jump on a plane anytime we wanted. And my dad and mom would call me every single day, and they would say, "Come home." And the problem with that was coming home was my definition of failure. This was the thing I thought I had to graduate from, and I had to become better than and bigger than. But so they're persistent. They're persistent. And so they called every single day. And one day I asked my dad, "Okay, Dad, well, if we did come, where would we even live? It's very hard to find a place to live around here. We live literally in the middle of nowhere." And he said, "Why don't you go to Grandma's house?" And my grandma had passed away a few years earlier. The house was just sitting empty. No one else could take care of it. And so we rented a car. We drove 4 days all the way through Mexico and to Colorado. And here we are.
And here you are. That is such an amazing story, because a lot of young people watch our podcast, and you and I are both mothers of amazing young men and boys, and I think young people feel that they need to leave, to make their mark in the world. And like you said, it's sort of, to cut yourself from your birth family, so to speak, and to say, I can do this on my own. And the reality of it is, of course you can, but I think now, even how the world has shifted, but even prior, and myself being European, we're all about family. But I was the same. I was like, I want to get out of here, make my own rules, do my own thing. And then shortly after that, the whole glitz and glitter of all that wears off, right? And then there's bills, and then there's life and whatnot. And I think you being close to your family, especially in this time, did that help you as a mother and as an entrepreneur? To have that family support, say, for your boys, yourself, and your husband?
That's a good question. At first, no, because I wasn't open to it. I was here probably 2 solid years before I was here, because internally I was not yet here. I didn't want to be here. I didn't like the changes that happened in the world. Travel has always been my passion, my joy. I traveled solo all of my 20s. I traveled with my husband, traveled with my kids. And so I was grieving the loss of my life as I knew it. And so I was having a hard time being present with the opportunities, the joys, the benefits of being here. And I would say last year I started turning the corner, and then it was just after Christmas, my dad got sick. And I had this time that I just took to be away from the business with Derek, the boys, my parents. And it was really when I saw what was right in front of me. My boys are 8 and 9, my parents are 65. And what I realized is the next 10 years is a really key window. It's the chunk of time that I have with my boys in this season. And then, who knows what they might decide to do. My parents, they're still very, healthy and vibrant.
And your dad is okay now?
He's much better now. Yes, he's back. And I just realized this family has my parents definitely played such a huge role in my life. My own family has been so important to me. I wanted to create a life that we could be together. My husband and I work together every single day of our marriage. We have raised our kids together. My boys have never went to school. Like, we are a family unit. We have done everything together for, my husband and I for almost 16 years,
We have so many things in common. But anyways, go on. Same with me. And most people are like, oh, don't you get sick of him? Doesn't he piss you off? And I'm like,
yes.
Of course, but no different than any other, let's say, coworker, partner, or friend would, right? And yeah. I love the fact that, exactly what you were creating with Derek, if you don't mind me saying his name, it is the exact same thing. It's almost like that you were running away from, but then it came on you that this, it's not just the 4 of us, it's maybe the 6 of us or the 26 of us, right?
Yes,
and it's sometimes, thank goodness, it was that's why I was going to say, what was the moment? And it sounds like sort of when you heard your dad was sick, people always take that time, and thank goodness that he's better, right? Or
yes.
doing better, is they take that time to reflect and say, wow, I really need to cherish every day and every moment, because honestly, you blink, and people would tell me this as I got older, not being 29 and a half anymore. And I wouldn't really believe them. I'm like, got lots of time. And sure enough, I blink and I've got, 4 boys that, they're still, some of them are still young, but they're taller than me. And I'm pretty tall. And they're matured. And it's like, we had, like, to your point, we had and continue to have such amazing moments together. But it is those moments, right? And when you talk to people, and I know you speak to many, which I'm going to address in a moment, that are, say, ready to pass through on the other side, they never say, oh, geez, I wish I had another $1 million in my bank account, or I wish I was at the office more. It was always, I wish I had more time with my family or loved ones. And how beautiful is it that, people like yourself, and definitely me, are able to live that before it's too late. That's beautiful. I love that message. Thank you so much for sharing and bringing out the fact that sometimes it takes you to leave and come back to know, right?
It's true. And what I realized is all of the things that I really craved when I was 16, 17, 18, 22, I had done. I didn't have to be stuck there. I didn't have to still be living my 21-year-old self. It's like, it's so easy to get trapped. And that's really what I learned in the last few months, is that there are seasons in life. And the most important thing is to be with the season that is upon us. And I had the season of going and figuring out who I was and what I was made of on my own. And it's a different season. Now it's a season for me to create experiences that bring my parents and my kids together, where the whole family is together. It's a time for me to, hey, the business is established. Let other people do their job, and I'll hold the bigger vision. And I love nothing more than cooking 3 meals a day and taking them sledding, and that's what I'm really seeing is I had to grieve what was finished, but then I also had to see every season has its own gifts.
Oh, I love that. I think you need a t-shirt. Every season has its own gifts. I absolutely love that. Let's touch base very quickly on the amazing journey that you have taken sort of to where you are today with your publishing company, very successful publishing company. Can you share a little bit about that, as well as being a female entrepreneur and getting into publishing? That's amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, my husband and I, we started a business in 2009 because I was unwilling to get married and him go to a job, I go to a job, we come home, we have dinner, we watch a show, we go to bed, and that's our life. And so we put our heads together. We created a business at a time where everyone else was thinking, what are you doing? Because here the real estate market had crashed. everything was in the dumps with the economy.
Yes.
But we just knew what we wanted. We wanted to work together. We wanted to travel together. We wanted a different kind of lifestyle than the typical American dream. And so initially we were doing websites and social media for people who that wasn't easy for them. Most of our clients were baby boomers who had brick and mortars, and they just didn't know how to integrate technology into their business.
And you
And
saw
then
that hole and that niche and you went after that.
absolutely. You know,
Love
I
it.
was at Chamber every Tuesday, BNI every Thursday, and I just saw that they didn't know what to do with that. And then it had to shift when I had 2 babies in 12 months. I had my boys back to back.
God bless.
And
I know that feeling.
you know that
Fun
feeling.
times.
And I thought, okay, I have to do business differently. My boys inspired me to be much more efficient and much smarter about what I did. And so then we started offering our services differently, and we expanded. We came online, and we left the country when the boys were babies. And the only thing that I knew to do when I transitioned from offline and in person to coming on social media, the only thing that I knew to do was to tell stories about my life. I shared about our travels. I shared about being a working mom and, you know, working with my husband and all of the facets. I just told those stories online, and I found that
Which is still so important to this day, because if you think about prior to internet, that's all people had. They would sit around their campfire or dinner or whatever they would do, and they would share stories, and that's how people learned. So never stop sharing your stories, because I absolutely love them, and I know other people are very gravitated towards that. So thank you. So you're at your storytelling now stage in your
yeah.
career, and then
It went from not having any idea how to get clients on social media to us having hundreds of clients at a time. And so then what happened is people just naturally said, hey, you know, how did that happen? How can I tell my story? How can I use storytelling to grow my business and to find my people? And then people started asking, hey, would you help me publish my story? And at first I said, no, we don't do that. I don't know how to do that. You know, that's not what I do. And then they just got really, and they insisted, you know, they said, you know, we've looked at traditional publishing. It's not what we want. I want to work with someone who already knows me, my business. They have a feel for me. So we started doing research, and that's when I learned that there's so few female-owned publishing houses. In fact, it used to be illegal for women to own a publishing house, even in the United States and Europe. And so I started digging in, and once again, I found the gaps in publishing. I found where they were not providing what my people wanted. And so we decided to create a division, a publishing house division. We had hundreds at that time. I want to say maybe 500 clients in our coaching programs, storytelling programs. But it just felt like it was time. And in the first year, we worked with 125 authors, and I knew we were onto something.
Absolutely.
And so we just kept expanding it out. Now publishing is all we do.
I love that. I love that.
Over 1,000 entrepreneurs, and we just found that entrepreneurs are different than authors, and storytelling is like telling your real life story is different than fiction. And we found that just bringing in our point of view as both entrepreneurs, women, storytellers, that it gives us a different slant, and it helps people really be able to find their people, but also to be more than just the face of the business, but actually bring their heart and soul to everything that they do.
Oh, and that is so important. I feel that in this day and age, but even prior to COVID, now, obviously, COVID's changed businesses and shifted who people want to do business with, and they want to know the face behind companies. And you have to have somebody that's very relatable. You know, you can have a beautiful photo and, you know, your wonderful bio that's been written by, you know, a famous writer, but to come on and talk about hard truths and your struggles and your successes. And, you know, I always say your dirt road to success, because for me, any female entrepreneur or entrepreneur otherwise is there's no clean road. There's always a dirt road, and there's obstacles, and there's mountains and potholes, and that is part of your story. Oddly, I have it tattooed on one of my arms that the struggle is part of the story. And it really is. And you have made a business of telling other people's stories. And how beautiful is that? Because the wealth of knowledge, when I go into any kind of coaching session or meeting for private investigation, people are like, what university did you go to? And I'm like, I graduated high school. And it is life's experience, right? I think we were separated at birth.
I never went.
I
never went to college.
Well, we're going to have to tell the audience in a second how many things we actually have in common. But, the wealth of knowledge that you get if you just listen to people. And for me, it was always about listening to my clients and sharing their often very hard and difficult, painful truths. And to see the grace and the beauty and the strength that people took to get through that, I feel so incredibly honored on a daily basis. And I'm sure you feel the same way when people share these things with you, because people hold them very close to their chest. They don't want to share their secrets, or they don't want anybody to know, like, you've got so many filters on social media, and people aren't coming out and telling their truth. Why not? It's what people relate to. And you've captured that. Tell us about the amazing books. Like, you've captured all of that. I can't even go into how many I think you did two book launches last week.
Two book launches last week. That's right. Yeah, we have expanded very quickly. We've taught hundreds of people around the world how to start their own publishing house. We published tons and tons of books. I think just by the end of March, we will have done 6 or 8 more. So what we have found is that once, you know how it is, once the word gets out, once people realize and start referring and introducing, it expands very quickly. And my husband is very good at systems and teams. And so it allows us to be able to take care of a lot of authors at the same time, without them becoming a number, without them just sort of being in a system and it being impersonal.
I love that. And something I've got to touch base on. So you and I have so many similarities. Where both, obviously female entrepreneurs, mothers. We both drive Rockstar Ford trucks.
That's right.
And one of the questions I always get asked is, well, how do you do it? And my answer always, I'm stumbled. That's the one question that I cannot give you, I could give you a bunch of tips, a bunch of tricks and trades, but my answer is I just do it. If you really look at what you did, if you look back in your life, Adriana, for sure, you're going to say, how did I do that? Right. And raising 2 very young children, very close back to back. And you're a fantastic mother, an amazing wife. And I know for a fact, a good friend, and daughter, et cetera, but you just did it. And, now you're, kind of like you said about the different seasons, you're in, I feel that maybe that stage of your life where you're sharing with others and others are sharing how they did it, because they want to uplift other people. Long gone is the day that we're all in competition with each other, right? It's more of, let me help, let me see how I can do it. And that is so admirable. Such an awesome quality, about one of the many qualities about you. But I want to ask you about your relationship with Derek, if I may.
Yes.
We talked earlier. We both work with our husbands since I got married. Same thing. We do everything together, opened up the business together, work together every single day. And, people have different perspectives on that, oh, should you really be spending that much time together? And, oh, is it this? Is it that? And I always say that it takes such an amazing partner, husband, whatever you would like to, refer to your loved one, to support a rock star woman like you. And he must have so much love and admiration for you, patience, kindness. So tell us, what's the secret? What's your guys' secret?
Well, I would say, first and foremost, I was really picky about who I dated, and I was not going to get married just for the sake of getting married. So I just want to start with that.
Awesome.
I had my eyes wide open, and there were certain things that I was just unwilling to do. And also I was very clear about who I was and what I wanted, because I came into the relationship and I had experiences on my own. And so I was very upfront about it, about the kind of life I wanted and what I didn't. And then I would say, Derek has always been a person that I could have fun with. He is so fun. He's funny. He can always make me laugh.
Oh,
And, you
key.
know,
That is key. Because when everything's spilling over and he can still make you laugh, even if it's at an inappropriate time.
oh
Same with
yeah,
me. I'm like, okay, we should not be laughing right now.
right.
You got tears and boogies coming out of your nose, and then somehow he's made you laugh.
Yep.
That to me is so important,
It
right?
it is. I mean, it's like, you have to be, I've learned this, like, no matter what it is, you have to be able to find the lightness in it. You've got to find something in it. And he is so steady. He's so practical, grounded, patient, all the things you said. And he also lets me be. He just freaking lets me be, you know? And it's like, I found that that was rare, because when I was traveling solo and I'd meet someone, they'd be like, oh, you shouldn't be traveling. You shouldn't do this. Immediately they'd start telling me what I couldn't do and I shouldn't do. And right. And he never tried to clip my wings. And I think, he just let me be. And I think too, you're so right. Like, a lot of people, I think they assume because I know what I want in my life and I know what I want in my business, and I just do stuff. I just lead. I don't know what to tell you. I have no other way of being. I just do it.
Yep.
I think they also think that women like this, that they just sort of mop the floor with their husbands. And that, like, that's not even a possibility with Derek. Like, Derek
Same.
is so strong, right? And he's so his own person. And actually, I love when he leads in everything else and he figures everything else out, because it's like, I know the things where I have a clear vision, but also I don't have to be in charge of everything. And it feels so good when I'm not, you know?
100%. And that you can count on somebody. My whole thing is, he's got your back. And,
Yes.
as well as put together as you are and as amazing as you are, you've got bad days, you've got bad moments, you've got life experiences that take you out at the knees, and he's there to pick you up, but also pick up the business. And who else can you trust as much as you can trust him? And of course, we all have, people that work with us and we trust immensely, but he's really got your back. And to your point, that is so rare. So number one is the fact that he does not clip your wings. Number two, love the fact that he can make you laugh. So important because there are hard times, regardless of whatever you say. There are hard times. Okay, I think are you still there?
I'm still here.
I have no idea what just happened. Let me just hold on. We can edit this regardless. Can you
No
still
problem.
see me?
I can still see you. It
Oh,
looks like there's like 9 minutes left.
okay. Okay. I don't know what happened, but if you can see me, that's awesome. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, perfect. I very unfortunately cannot see you, but that's okay. Like I said, we'll get that all done. So can we talk a little bit about struggles that, we all have? What would you say was one of your major obstacles or struggles that was tough for you to overcome?
Mm. I would say the most difficult thing that I've ever been through is having a full-term stillbirth. I was 40 years old. I went the full pregnancy, went into labor, gave birth at home, delivered her myself, and she was not breathing. She was sleeping, and I knew she was gone, and I just knew, I knew her feet would never be here. And that, the journey of that all of the layers, the grief, the relationships, keeping the business together, and figuring out how I felt about myself, how I felt about life, uh, all of that, it took me down a lot of different roads, a lot of deep places.
First and foremost, Adriana, my deepest love, admiration, and respect for you. And can you share your daughter's name?
Her name was Nina.
Nina, and for sharing yours and Nina's story. Your story is so incredibly important to share because so many people have gone through this, and it's mystifying to me as a woman. Now, I have personally not gone through that, but it's mystifying why they're not talking about it. And they being the people that have gone through this, and you've got the strength now. And I'm sure maybe it wasn't always like this, but I'd love for you to share. But to talk about it so other women know that they're not alone, that this happens. It's not their fault. You know, all the guilt and everything that I'm 100% certain that, you know, you have had to cross and go through. When can I ask you, what was her birth date?
January 9th, 2018. So we were actually getting ready to announce the publishing division of our company. The business was at the peak. My boys were very little, and I was on social media. So the whole, you know, I say the whole world, our whole world watched me be pregnant. They were all waiting for the news, right? And so when this happened, I remember sitting with Derek, and I knew I had to make a decision because I had clients who were waiting. Everyone is just waiting for the news. All of my family, my parents were getting ready to fly over. We were in Europe at the time. My parents were getting ready to fly over. And so I had to make a lot of phone calls, and I made the decision maybe 2 days after she was born to go on social media and to say I had a stillbirth. And I made the decision from the get-go, I was going to talk about it openly. So I talked about it at whatever stage I was at from the very beginning. And what I noticed was the same thing. In fact, most women who have shared this experience with me have told me that the doctors, midwives, everyone told them, please don't talk about it. Don't tell anyone, just get pregnant again. And I think there's a few different reasons why women stay silent. Number one, they feel completely responsible. If something happens to the baby in my belly, who else's fault could it be but mine? I also think that there's a lot of, in our society, we don't like to talk about death. I mean, we'd rather do anything. There's nothing more we'd rather avoid, right? And so
100%.
when a child dies, when a baby dies, it makes us so uncomfortable. It makes us question things. It's out of order. We don't know what to do with it. We don't know what to say. And so it just leads to a lot of uncomfortable situations, awkward moments. And so I think women, they're carrying a lot of guilt, and they want to spare everyone else the pain and the lack of, we don't know what to do. So we just shut our mouths about it.
We stay silent. Yep.
Stay silent.
And you didn't. And that is so profound because, so often people turn to Dr. Google, as I like to call it, or the internet, and sometimes not their friends and family, because like you said, people don't know how to react. What do you say? There's really not much you can say. Death is a part of life. The death of a child is hopefully not, but sometimes is. And you were able to talk about it in a way that I guarantee you has touched so many more people than you even know. Besides people that have contacted you, I know people have read it, gone back to it, looked at your videos, and have really been able to connect with you, because I think with times like in struggle, but also with mental health or anything else that's really tough, people just want to not feel like they're alone. And I think you've created that for people with your story.
I sure hope so. Because that is the thing, I really want mothers and fathers and grandparents and siblings who've been through this to know, it's not their fault, and they're not alone. They didn't do anything wrong. And also, it does get better. It can get better. I remember.
Are you doing better? Because
I am. Thank goodness.
I can never imagine what you've gone through. I watched my mother bury my adult, I mean her child, my sister, and she did it with such beauty and such grace. And I don't, I say that when as I said, I've got tears in my eyes just thinking about what you've gone through and how you would be able to do something like that. And I know you and I have shared this before. How did you do it? And you just said, I just did, and with the love and support. But wow, Adriana, wow. I think that it's just amazing what you do as a human being and the strength that you show. Maybe you didn't always feel like that. I'm sure there was times maybe you couldn't get out of bed, or, you were just floating through life trying not to feel all the things you were feeling, but you did it.
Yeah.
And how do you think, like, what are things do you think that really helped you to get to where you are today?
I'm going to be honest. It's not really culturally acceptable, but it's the honest to God truth of how I got through it. Is I didn't swallow it. When I was angry, I was angry. When I had questions, I asked them. When I was just enraged, when I was mad, when I was sad, when I was in grief, whatever I was in, I was so fully in it. I was so fully in it. I decided I was going to go all in. I was going to be on 10 on whatever I was in. And I actually stopped caring about what that might look like to other people or how it might make them feel. And it actually helped me to be able to process it and get through it versus sitting in it for a lifetime.
I love that. I love that message. It's one of the messages I share quite often is exactly what you just said. Don't let the outside influences deter you from your goal. So if your goal was to say, I'm going to share with, the people that, know about Nina, what I'm going through, because I know it's going to help. If it helps one person, I've done my job. But it's also was sort of like therapeutic for
Yes.
you, right? And it was something that helped you through that as well. It's profound, Adriana, honestly. And how about Derek and the boys? They were good with all of the mixed bags of emotion that this brought through. I'm sure loving and supporting, of course.
Yeah, they were. I actually think it helped them as well because there was nothing that was off limits. There was nothing that was unacceptable. We could talk about it openly.
I am so grateful that you are able to share your experience and share with others the birth of Nina and the loss and the grief that you felt. What do you think were the things that kind of got you through? Maybe it's not one thing, maybe it's a few little things. What do you feel that got you through the really tough moments?
I would say, first off, it was just day-to-day life. My boys were so little when this happened. And so their little faces popping up at 5 a.m. every morning saying, we want mama oatmeal or crepes. It pulled me out of bed. It got me focused on doing something other than reliving and rethinking what had happened. And I think that led to me finding a rhythm in my business, getting back to work, going on dates with Derek, going on daily walks. And I think it was really those unsexy day-to-day things that actually helped me focus on something. I'm a person, I need something to focus on, and I needed to focus on something other than why did this happen and how can I undo it? Because that wasn't going to happen. So that's what I would say is really just being committed. I because of those two little boys, I didn't have a choice. I couldn't stay in bed all day. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
That's amazing. And do you feel that sharing your story was also a way that you were able to heal? And perhaps knowing, I know you want to heal others, you want to help others. Do you feel that, because what I hear from a lot of people is that when they're in their darkest moments, if you give to others and serve others, I feel like that might have been a big part of your healing. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. When I would go online and I'd share a story, It was absolutely therapeutic for me. That was the only therapy I had, right? I didn't hire a therapist. I didn't join a grief group. I didn't do any of that. I didn't want to. And I'll be totally honest about that. I was invited to some Facebook groups early on for grieving moms who'd been through the same thing I did. And I realized pretty early on that I couldn't function in those circles. I saw women who, unfortunately they weren't processing it well. Their life had come to a stop. They were heavily medicated, and grief is the sort of thing that it will take over when allowed. And I think what I decided is to pour my heart out into writing, to be as raw and real as I could, and to just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And the thing that I learned is one day I had to face myself. I had to get really honest about what I was dealing with, what I was up against. And what I realized is it was either me or grief. I was either going to give grief the rest of my days. I was going to give them the relationship I had with Derek and the boys. I was going to give up my joy. I was going to give up my possibilities, potential, whatever was still within me, or I wasn't. And I just decided that was too big of a price to pay. And I was not going to do it.
So you made a conscious decision that this was not going to take you out. This isn't the way you wanted to be remembered. And it's most definitely not the way you wanted your daughter to be remembered either. Right?
It's true. It's so true. And I think that this is a wrestling match that a lot of parents go through. I think there's a lot of guilt about living after your child has died. And what I realized is I had already lost my daughter. Nothing was going to change that. But I sure as heck wasn't going to die with her.
And yes, and lose your boys and your husband. And the other big thing for me that's standing out is imagine the lessons that you're teaching those young boys. Imagine their truth, because nobody's getting out of here alive. At the end of the day, two things guaranteed in life, and that's birth and death, and a lot of stuff in between. But you're teaching them it's not a terrible, tragic. I mean, there is grief, there's sadness, etc., for the people that are left on the earth to deal with their memory. But you're teaching those boys, like, hey, it's okay to feel sad or mad or ask the questions of why and maybe not get it. But you also do have to go on, because you're leading by example. Those boys, wow, they probably have you on a pedestal already. That's amazing.
I just love them to pieces, and it's true. And one of the things that I really noticed is for the first 4 years, I was really in the arena with grief. And grief is a real son of a gun. But what I found is in that last few months is I really came face to face with death. And death is a completely different thing than grief.
Interesting.
I found death to be very gentle and very still. And when I came face to face with death, I heard there's nothing to fear.
Wow.
There's nothing to fear. And so I think, oftentimes this is why it's easy to get caught in the grief loop, because we really don't want to face fear or death. Death is such an unknown, mysterious thing in our society and our culture.
Nobody can tell you about it. Nobody can tell you about it. You've got your faith or your spirituality, and you hope that that's enough, and a lot of times it's not. And wow, that is awesome. I hope sounds like you knocked the out of grief and out of death, and out of grief, but like facing death, you've put a different twist on it for yourself and for your family and for others. And that is beautiful. That is beautiful, Adriana. Thank you. I think that's going to help a lot of people, because people, I feel that a lot of times they're within, they kind of learn how their parents were, or their, aunts and their grandparents. And, there's some people, that throw themselves at the coffin, or they don't get out of bed, or they throw themselves within a bottle, or addiction, whatever the case may be. And you're saying, you don't need any of that. Just come to terms with this is going to happen for all of us. And, you've just created you've changed the narrative around death. And that is profound. So thank you.
Thank you for letting me share.
I really appreciate you. I have one last question to ask you. If you had a message for all the other aspiring women that are watching you grow your business, raise your children, and be the rock star that you are, do you have a message on International Women's Day for aspiring female entrepreneurs?
I want to remind every woman to take a pause, to celebrate herself, to give herself more credit than maybe she usually does. Because while there's always another mountain to climb and another goal to achieve, and some things that didn't go the way we thought, and failures or disappointments, there is so much that you have inside of you, so much that you have accomplished, achieved, and overcome. Take a victory lap. Give yourself some credit today.
I love that. So focus on the positive, live in gratitude, the way that you obviously role model for very, two amazing little boys and the rest of us. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. How can people get a hold of you if they'd like to? Obviously, we're going to have it in our description, but how can they contact you if they wish?
Absolutely. They can reach our publishing website at almapublishing.co, and they can find me on social media under my full name. I'm always sharing stories there and encouraging them to do the same.
I love that. Thank you so much, Adriana. We're definitely going to have you back. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to the I Am Unbreakable podcast. Real, authentic, real life stories of women who've become unbreakable. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram at I.am Unbreakable.